Tell me about when I was over at Aunt Audrey's house. My mom said that you wanted to wallpaper these
Yeah, we
boards.
used to visit a lot with Rang and Oscar because that's about the only relatives, that we had living close by. And we used to drive up there. And when they were trying to paper the living room, Rang and Oscar were. So Daddy said, well, I'll help paper that living room. Rang, you'd go do what you want to do. So they stood there and they stood there and they stood there and they stood there. And finally it was time to go milk the cows. And so Rang and I said, let's finish papering that living room.
This was your living room or hers?
No, it was her living room. And we slapped the paint out, the paste on the paper. And I think I was taller, so I got up there and started going straight. They couldn't get it to go straight.
The men couldn't?
No, And when they got back from milking the cows, we had that room papered. And it's just as straight as a string. They kept looking to see if they could find any fault with it, but they couldn't find any fault with it.
You ruined their day, boy.
Yeah, we sure did.
Now, what about when you did this house?
Well, I did a lot of this
Mom
myself.
said you did it with old dresses?
Yeah. Well, he built it with raw lumber. The lumber hadn't been seasoned. And it started in the ceilings, it would crack. And I didn't like those cracks in it, so I had an old blue and white polka dot dress that I didn't like, and I'd had it about 10 years, I guess, and so I started tearing that up and putting it over the cracks. And that held and that made a good foundation. Then I could paper over that, wallpaper over that. And well, this house has seen a lot of
action.
Yeah, a lot of action is right.
Well, let's go back to there's that picture of you with your hair right before you got married. Your hair all done up.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is me before I got married. I don't think I'd even met my husband then.
Now, what do they call that hairstyle?
Just a Marcel. They used to use the curling irons and make little grooves in it.
So how long did it take you to get your hair like that?
How long did it take me to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, about a half hour or so. It didn't take very long.
How did you get it to stay? Did you guys have hairspray in those days?
No, we didn't have hairspray. I don't know how it stayed. I think I used to wrap it in toilet tissue or something when I'd go to bed at night.
And then you want to show that picture of your mom and dad?
Yeah. This is my mom and dad.
About how old were they in this picture?
Oh. I would say Dad's got a flower in there. It's probably their 25th wedding anniversary.
So how long were they married before your mom died?
Oh, I can't remember. She died in 1950. And they were married in... When were the folks married, Al? Do you remember?
Who?
When were my folks married? Do you remember?
Your folks.
What?
I do well remember who we married.
Well, let's see. O.R. was born in 1900. They must have been married in 1988 or 89. Because he was born 1900. So they had been married 50 years at the time.
Oh, really?
She died,
So quite a while.
Yeah.
Now, what did your dad do after your mom died? Did he continue to work the farm, or?
Oh, he was heartbroken when Mama died. He didn't know what to do. Alfred was living with him at the time. Both Victor and Alfred were living there. And then Victor got married after 3 or 4 years. And Alfred lived with him. And then Alfred got married after 2 or 3 years. And Dorothy wasn't very good to him. I know one day at night we were up there for dinner. They invited us up for dinner. And he spilled a glass of water on the table.
Your dad?
Yeah. And she got real mad at him, for spilling a glass of water. And anyway, he died about 9 years after my mother did. He went out to, he just bought brand new horses, or one brand new horse. The other one died. He bought a brand new horse from Eastern Washington, and there's a lot of rattlesnakes and things over there. And he went to spray his horses. He was a real immaculate farmer, you know. He kept his horses clean and his barns clean and things. He went to spray the flies off of his horses, and he didn't warn the horses that he was coming, and it sounds like a rattlesnake, you know, went zzz.
Oh.
And he thought it was a rattlesnake, so he kicked him in the stomach. And he walked from the barn to the stomach and went and lay down a while, and he told Alfred and Dorothy that the horse had kicked him, but they didn't call the doctor. If they'd have called the doctor right away, they probably could have done something. By the next morning, peritonitis had set in, and he died about a couple of days after that.
Boy, so now what did your mom die of?
She had a stroke, cerebral hemorrhage.
Oh, really?
She died in the doctor's office. Dad, and she'd been doctoring. Al and I were home at Christmas time, and we stayed a week or two to help her out because she was in bed all the time. And when she felt better, then we came back to Seattle. And Dad took her into Bellingham every once in a while for doctoring for her chest or something, lungs or something. And they have heard of a new doctor, so they went to this new doctor. And he must have given her some kind of hormone pill or something that didn't agree with her, because she just got out in the doctor's office. Dad, she was staying with Helge and Nellie, his wife, there, so Dad didn't have to drive in every day. I think she had to see the doctor every day or every other day. And he went over to Helge and picked her up and took her to the doctor's office, and she collapsed in the doctor's office with a cerebral hemorrhage. And they rushed her to the hospital, but she was already dead. She died in the doctor's office. She told Dad, "Oh, my tongue feels so thick," she said, and then she collapsed, just fainted.
Well, she'd had problems. She wanted you to wait till you were older to get married, so you wouldn't have as many children as she had, because she thought it had torn out her insides.
Well, that's what she had told Rangel. She said, "Oh, Cemoria's getting married so young," she said, "she'll have to have so many children, you know."
And that started to slow her down, and then she had some other problems, I guess, then too?
Yeah, I think she had female problems, you know. The doctor told her after the last baby was born, said not to have any more children. It'd kill her if she had another child. They had their children at home, and they didn't do the work that doctors didn't do the
sewing up.
Repair jobs that they needed. And I'm sure that's why she couldn't pick up a chair or anything. She'd have to walk it across and she couldn't even hold dishes in her hand, put it to, take them to the table or anything. A big stack of them, she'd have to take 2 or 3 at a time. So she was quite sickly when I was about 14 or 15. She couldn't iron clothes. She couldn't do anything like that.
Now, you said your dad was devastated when she died.
Yeah.
He was really heartbroken.
Yes, he was. He was heartbroken. I don't think he ever got over it. And they said he was real stoic when he knew he was going to die. The doctors told him he couldn't live. And Frank says he didn't say a word. He just took it like a soldier,
Now, where are they buried?
Up there in Evergreen Cemetery at Ferndale. Or between Ferndale and Custer. He did. When that mama died, he bought 8 lots up there, and figured, that some of the children might like to be buried up there. And he was buried there by my mother. And then when Uncle John died, Aunt Yerda asked Alfred was a caretaker because he was at home at the time, if she could bury Dad, her husband by Dad. And Alfred said yes, so they're both buried in there. Uncle John and his wife.
Now, who is Uncle John? That's your...
That was my dad's brother. They lived next
Okay.
door to us.
Okay.
And I don't know who else is buried there.
Where was Sig buried?
Sig?
Uh-huh.
She was buried up here at the Washington Memorial Cemetery. Victor, she buried Victor up there, and then she was buried there, and what's her name? Not Marilyn, but yeah, Marilyn. Marilyn Leda was buried up there too when she was killed in an automobile accident. And Karen is still living, and so is George.
Now, how did Sig die, and how old was she when she died?
Oh, she was, I think, 62 or 3, I think, 60, in her 60s, early 60s. She just died in her sleep one night. She had diabetes, and she had changed doctors. They'd changed pills on her, and I think it was too hard on her heart. Karen said she found her the next morning. She was laying with her head on her hand, like she always sleeps, just like she was asleep.
Well, to get back to more upbeat things here, do you want me to go get some of the pictures of your kids as they were growing up, and you can talk about being a mom?
If you want to.
Okay, I'll go get them in a sec. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This is a picture when we were little. This is Fritz, and this is me, and this is Victor. I don't know where our little Alfred wasn't born then. I think there's about difference between Victor and Alfred about 5 years.
You look like one of the boys in that picture, huh?
Yeah, I do. I feel like a boy too. I'm sure I felt like I was a boy. And this is our family picture when I was taken when I was about 13. This is Alfred. This is me. This is Ranghild. And this is Fritz.
Forget one of those brothers, huh?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't tell. And this is O.R. And this is Helge. And this is Henry. And this is Victor. This is Sigrid. This is my mother and my father. Did I say Alfred and me?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hold it up straight
Yeah.
up so I can get a good picture of it? You all had your legs crossed so nicely.
Yeah. The photographer saw to that. We went to a photographer's studio in Bellingham, had the picture taken. This was just before Rang was married.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So, like a month before, or like a year before, or something like that, or?
Probably 2 or 3 months before. Because she was going with Uncle Oscar, and they figured she'd get married one of those days, and they wanted us all together.
So at that time, half of them were married and half of them weren't, huh?
No, Rang was the first one married.
Oh, was she? I thought O.R. would be.
No, No, O.R. was married about a year before I was.
So he's a late bloomer. He's always
Yeah.
busy making money, huh?
Yeah, that's right. He's too busy to get married. And this is Lorraine when she was a baby. And this is Lorraine and Barbara when they were children. And then I've got another picture. What happened to the other one? Oh, here. Here's the whole family. Just before Barbara was married, we had this picture taken of the whole family.
Sorry, Joy and Al Jr. and Carol, but we couldn't, on the spur of the moment, find your baby pictures. So we'll have to stick them on the baby started being born. Talk about your first baby and what it was like being a new mom. You didn't have your mom to come and help you. Did you have anyone else to help?
No, I had to help myself.
Did you have her?
Mako came over and helped me bathe Lorraine the first time. I was in the hospital for 12 days because, I don't know, something happened. They wouldn't let me go home. And so Mako came over. She slept with us in the same bed that night.
You and the baby and Al?
Yeah.
Mako?
Not the baby, but Mako and Al and I slept in the same bed because I didn't
Wow.
have another bed. But I had a Davenport, but she wanted to sleep in the bed, so...
It's kind of cozy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we slept in the same bed. And then she went home. She decided I could bathe the baby.
Uh-huh.
And I think she was working at the time anyway. And then I kept noticing Lorraine had these little white bumps on her tongue, and I kept calling the doctor. Oh, he says, just clabbered milk. It's just clabbered milk. And about the fourth day, I thought, this isn't clabbered milk. If it was clabbered milk, it would either go down or come out, you know. Mm-hmm. And some friends of ours came over, and they said, well, that looks like trench mouth. So they told us about a doctor in Seattle, a specialist, Dr. Gray. And we took her to there, and he says, that's what it is, it's trench mouth. And he said she must have got infected from the hospital, you know, from the nipples, that they had her sucking on nipples. And he said, it's a good thing you brought her in when you did, or it could have gone into her stomach and killed her. So he gave us some tincture of methylate to paint her mouth with, but I wasn't brave enough to do it, so we took her in every day and had the nurse do it for her.
Now, didn't you have to feed her barley water too, or something like that?
We did. Yeah, he said give her a lot of water. And I said, well, she doesn't seem to like water. He says, well, cook up some barley and give her barley water. He said, that's real good for the babies. So I did. We still use a lot of barley here in our house.
And now, was it pretty easy being a first-time mother? Did you just catch on to things real quick?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't hard. I'd seen Rang have babies, you know, and I was over there helping her when she had Bob and Curtis, and I had taken care of babies before, so it wasn't a big job for me. Mm-hmm. But when you're own and you're just out of the hospital, it's kind of scary.
Right.
You know, and you're so afraid you're going to do something wrong.
Right. Now, did you have Lorraine here?
What?
Did you have Lorraine in your home? Or at the hospital?
No, I had her at the hospital, the Ballard General Hospital.
Mm-hmm. And how about Barbara? Where was she born?
She was born at home.
Was she? Mm-hmm. And why did you have one at home and one at the hospital?
Well, it was, I didn't feel like leaving Lorraine with just a babysitter. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, I'm just going to have this baby at home and save us a hospital bill and be with the children, you know. Mm-hmm. And so the other three, son and Joanne, the son were born at home too. But I had such a hard time having son at home that they couldn't do anything for my organs, you know. They couldn't take care of them or anything. And he said I was torn real badly. And my son was a 10-pound baby. Wow. And so anyway, so when 5 years later we're going to have Carol, Daddy decided we should go to the hospital, so we went to the Seattle General Hospital.
Now, you didn't have anesthetic with any of them?
Oh, they tried to give it to him, but I gagged on it, the either, you know.
Too sweet.
Mm-hmm. And when I was in the hospital with Carol, the baby started coming. They induced me. And, I had such a backache, I thought my back was going to break because she came so fast. In fact, she came before the doctor got there, so they had to give me some ether to hold the baby back so that the doctor would be there to deliver her.
Wow. Now, what was Grandpa like when you were having babies, especially here at home? What was he like?
Well, I don't know. He took it easy.
You can tell. He's asleep.
Yeah. He went and milked the cow and didn't bother him. I was having a baby.
I was milking the cow, and I brought the feed bucket down where I had it into the house. I heard your mom cry. I said, well...
You didn't hear me cry. You heard the baby cry.
Yeah, I heard Christina's mother.
Joy.
Yeah.
And what'd you think when you heard her cry?
I said, well, she got a good strong lung. You hear her clear out here.
I never cried when I had a baby. I just groaned a little bit. I never... It hurt, but you know, I've always been sort of not baby myself too much. I've always been stoic, like Grandpa was stoic.
Well, that's neat. So, your family got bigger and bigger. What are some of the funny things that they did? Go ahead and tell on them.
Oh, when, well, they were all good kids, but we didn't have too much. We just had a little dirt around the house, you know, and they didn't have much to play with until Grandpa made them a swing, and then they enjoyed that swing a lot, and they'd come in and get my spoons, and they'd dig to China. They'd digging that dirt out there. They said, "Oh, we're soon down in China." They'd say.
They played ball, didn't they?
What?
Didn't Barbara play ball? She king on the mountain.
Oh yeah.
She
When
had
we
some
got
kind of game. She was
Yeah.
a tomboy.
Barbara was a tomboy. She was the king of the mountain. She could wrestle. Omar and Maureen would bring their kids over, their boys over, and Barbara would sit on the boys. You know, she'd wrestle them down. So the boy says, "They're not going to go over there again. They don't like that Barbara. She's too rough." They were just sort of sissies.
Oh, well, what else? We always hear all these stories about how good our parents were, so you can go ahead and tell us how they really were. Go ahead.
How the good?
No, our parents always tell us how good they were.
Yeah, they were good kids, really good kids.
Oh, come on, Grandma. You don't have to keep up this.
I don't remember too much about
one
them.
time.
Oh, Grandpa remembers. Okay,
One
Grandpa,
time.
go ahead.
Well, yeah. Mother was up milking the cow, and the girls got in a quarrel about who would wash the dishes, and they were all quarreling. They were going to leave, and the son come up and said, "The girls are going to leave. They're mad, and they're going to leave." She says, "Well, tell them wait till I get down. I'll help them pack." She said, "Well, you'll have to sleep in the ditch if you do tonight, out in the ditches along the road." So they decided they wouldn't leave.
Yeah, I came down and told them, I'm going to help you pack. What do you want to take, kids? You can't take any blankets. You just take your clothes, I told them. And you'll have to sleep in the ditch tonight. The ditches are kind of cold, you know. Well, I guess we won't go tonight. And they did the dishes. They had done the dishes when I got down.
We had them picking beans, and Lorraine didn't like that idea. Lorraine told her to get down there to that little bean field and start picking beans and make some money. She said, when she left, she yelled out, "Oh, you slave driver."
They're across the road. She yelled at me, "I'm an old slave driver." But she wanted to stay home and take care of Carol, and I thought, well, why should I go down there and pick beans when I didn't need the money, but she needed it, you know. And I thought, well, I can take care of Carol better than she could anyway.
Yeah, no.
Well, they did it anyway.
But Joy and Barbara just loved to go down there and pick beans. So did Joy. In fact, Joy wasn't old enough, and he told her that she's too short to string beans. Oh, she says, "I'll do it." She says, "I'll do it." And she put the bean up and threw the ball over and caught the ball, and she got where she was a better stringer of beans than all the rest of the kids.
They had one war at the bottom and one at the top, you know. She couldn't reach the top, so she'd tie it and then just loop it around, toss it up and catch it, and put her down under the other wire and throw it back up, and she'd go along, just, you know, throw it up, catch it, put it under, throw it down and catch it. Just she do
They
that
said
real
she was the best bean stringer they had.
Yeah.
And whenever we hear this story, we always hear how she was forced to go out to work in the bean fields to buy a coat.
She didn't want to. She wanted to go.
You hear that, Mom? We caught you. You wanted to go. We were forced to go out to the strawberry fields. We never wanted to go, but that's okay.
Well, she might have objected the first time or two, but she sure wanted to go. He told her she was too small. Brother Embedot told her she was too small to come string beans. You know?
She argued with him, said she could.
She could.
So
Well,
he watched her a little bit. He was surprised how she could throw that ball of twine up and catch it. Just keep going, put it underneath.
Yeah, she was little and wiry, and boy, she could, you know, it was like Barbara. Both of them are real little and wiry, and they could do things real fast.
well, now, didn't you guys used to have a rule that you couldn't laugh at the dinner table? And one time Barbara was eating a chicken neck.
all away from the table with me.
Yeah, okay, well, tell this story. Who wants to tell the story? Grandma or Grandpa? Who wants to tell this story?
Well, I'll tell it.
Okay.
We started, something funny was said at the dinner table, and the kids started laughing. And Grandpa says, "Now, I want you kids to eat your dinner and be quiet. Don't laugh." And Barbara started giggling after he said that. He said, "Okay, Barbara, you go to the bedroom."
Oh, what it was is she broke open a chicken neck and pulled out a big vein.
Yeah.
Said she had a worm
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, anyway, what happened, I don't know. But they started laughing, and then one by one they started laughing because Barbara was in the bedroom giggling, you know.
Uh-huh.
And the one next one laughed, go to the bedroom. So all of a sudden, all the kids were in the bedroom.
See your mother laugh. I was out there alone.
And I was laughing too. So
You sent your wife
All
to
right,
the
stop.
bedroom?
Yeah.
Stop your laughing, all of you, and come back to the table.
Well, what'd they do?
They come back very sober-minded.
Well, they did. They were still giggling. They thought it was funny. Even Grandpa was laughing when they came back.
You were laughing, huh?
Yeah.
No. I always remember how Grandpa, when we were over here, he'd never let us eat by candlelight. Can't see the food. Can't see my mouth.
Yeah.
Where to put it?
Yeah.
You have particular manners at the table, and why is it polite to burp at the table, Grandpa?
Why is it?
Yeah, you always say it's good manners to burp at the table.
Shows the food is good.
That's right. Where's that custom originate from?
I think someplace over in
China.
China or someplace. It was a custom. The Welsh just showed the meal was a good meal.
So is Grandma a good cook?
I heard that. I went to one of these mutual meetings one night, and this guy told about that. So I always said it's all right. It shows that his food was good.
So Grandma, you're a good cook, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Well, what are some other stories about these kids of yours? How about when they were wanted to go out and play, and you made them do dishes, and they put them all the way wet?
Yeah. Barbara always dry the dishes. She just shake them a little bit, bang, up the cupboard they go. So the next morning, we'd get the dishes down here. It was still dripping water. Daddy'd say, well, I'm going to make sure tonight that she dries those dishes instead of putting up there wet. And the same next morning, the same thing. He never did follow through. He said he was going to, but he never did. Barbara still remembers that we had wet dishes when I dried the dishes.
Yeah. Well, what are some other things that these kids did? How about fishing? Uncle Sonny going fishing a lot.
He had a little stream down there. We lived down there, South Center. And there's a little stream of water there, and they allow the little kids, adults couldn't fish in there. And the neighbor boy and son would go down and they'd catch little fish about 5 or 6 inches long, bring them back, and he was just a little guy then.
Uh-huh.
So that's how he started fishing. And he got going fishing with the relatives and camping out with them and fishing on the river. So he grew up like and learned to fish. And when he went to college, he took a little course in tying making flies.
Uh-huh.
So when I went after he was married and everything, I went over to Montana. He wanted to go fishing in the river up there in Montana. So I went with him. It was a big wide river. And boy, he could throw that line out. He had the line so it would be loose and it would just unroll. If it had a weight on it,
Uh-huh.
it had weight so it would sink. He'd take that and throw it out, and then just come on rolling because it was so loose. And he could throw it clear across the river.
Jeez.
Then he would hold it as it come back across. He'd wind it in, and sometimes he'd have a fish, and he caught quite a few fish.
Wow, that's good. Well, now,
In Montana, or in Wyoming, or in Idaho, it was in Idaho, he said, let's go out have a picnic. And they all went up. He took his hip boots and his light and everything. He was catching fish, and we had fried mountain trouts. He'd catch them. They were big ones, some about that long, you know.
uh-huh.
Had we had all kinds of fried fish there.
So Grandma, were you always cooking up fish when Uncle Sonny was a boy?
Yeah. They were good too.
Were they? Well, now, you will go down in family history, Grandma, for your reaction to blood.
I will.
Yes. Now, one time my mom, I guess, was picking blackberries over a stump, and the ladder went out from under, and what happened?
She fell down into the stump and made a great big gash in her elbow here, her arm.
Uh-huh.
And she came running down, "Oh, I'm bleeding, Mom, I'm bleeding." And so I took one look and I fainted. And I said, "Lorraine, can you help her?" When I came to, "Can you help her?" So Lorraine took care of it and bandaged her up and washed it off and everything.
So did Lorraine have to be the one who handled the bloody wounds and stuff?
Yeah, and Al had to handle them if they vomited. I couldn't stand that either.
Oh, you're a sympathetic vomiter too?
Yeah, I sure am. Just hear what I did that.
You're just the delicate one in the family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, now, when Uncle Sonny and Aunt Kathleen lived below you in a trailer, and she was going to have a baby, didn't he faint?
Yeah, he sure did. When he came upstairs out the back porch, "Hey, Mom," he says, "I think Kathleen's having her baby." I said, "Okay, I'll go down." When I came back up, he was sitting there. He'd fainted on the floor there so I said, and I came up and I got sick to my stomach because I heard her grunting, and I thought, oh gosh. And so I came up and says, "Hey, Al, Kathleen's having her baby." So he sent Lorraine down. And she finally called the hospital, and she went down and she called the hospital, and they said bring her in, and so that's what we did.
Boy, this is not a good household if you're in distress.
No, it sure isn't. No, we all pass the buck to someone else.
Lorraine has to be around to pick up the pieces, huh?
Yeah.
And Lorraine was losing her baby teeth, Had one real loose. She'd wiggle a little bit, and I'd say, so I said to her, "Well, Lorraine, just take this string and loop it and tie it around the tooth and just keep jerking a little bit on it. Pretty soon you'll have it out." Of course, she wouldn't jerk. Yeah, it hurt. I said, "Well, you're not jerking hard enough." And she was sitting in the chair like this or something. And I reached for the string, and she jumped over the chair, and I had the string in her tooth too.
She thought she died.
Bleeding. I said, "Get over to the sink there and wrench your mouth out. You're all right. Nothing wrong."
I know I tried to get it out when she was in bed one night.
You told me you had to go to the relief side or something. You said, try to get her to pull that tooth.
Well, you tried to get it out when she was
Get it out
asleep?
while she was taking
Well,
a nap.
I let her like she was going to pull it herself.
Hey, whose story is this? Yours or mine?
Grandma wants to finish your sentence.
You weren't here when I did it.
Yes, I was. I saw her jump and everything. I had tried to get it out during the day when she was taking a nap. And I had a marshmallow, and I told her, well, she was asleep, and she woke up. "What are you doing, Mom?" She said.
What were you going to do with the marshmallow?
Well, I was going to bribe her with the marshmallow. And she liked marshmallows real well. I says, "Let me pull this tooth, and then I'll give you a marshmallow after it's out." Because it was growing in. I was afraid it would come in crooked,
Uh-huh.
No. She wouldn't let me touch that tooth with a string. So Daddy took it that night.
Well, I was the one who introduced the string idea. But I was letting her think she was going to do the pulling. But when I said, "You're not pulling," I said, and I reached out, and she jumped over the chair, and I grabbed the string, and the tooth came out. The blood came, and she was crying. I said, "Go to the sink and rinse your mouth."
Uh-huh. Well, now, tell me about when Lorraine was a little girl, you used to tape back her ears?
Oh,
She's a
yeah. When
baby.
her ears were real soft and floppy, and
Didn't have any.
she'd move from side to side, and those ears would come
Lay on
out.
her.
Al, let me tell it. Can I?
Okay.
And so when I'd take her downtown on the bus, well, I didn't like those ears flapping around, and I taped them down with white tape, because that's all the tape we had in those days.
You just folded it over behind so you couldn't see, or you just took
No.
a piece of tape
I
across
put
her
a
ear?
piece of tape across her ears, and the people would look at that girl, wondered what's wrong with her ears. And I tried to put a cap on her head, but she would never leave a cap on her head. She always had it off and in her hand or thrown down on the floor, you know.
Uh-huh.
She was not even a year old yet. And I never told anybody why I did. But Bing Crosby, they did the same thing to Bing Crosby, I heard, after he died.
Yeah, I heard that too. Well, we have to get a picture then again of Aunt Lorraine. These are her ears that are so famous. Let's hold that up so we can take a look at those
They
ears.
just didn't have any grit or stuff in there, just kind of loose.
Yeah,
Let's
these
see.
are
Let's get a
Lorraine's
close
ears.
up of her ears.
When they got older, I guess they got more grit
That
in there.
I used to tape down when she was little because they flopped out like elephant's ears.
So were you as picky with your other ones as you were with your first one?
Yes, I was.
You were.
But they had stronger. Now Barbara doesn't have ears like that, does she?
She had hair over her ears.
Yeah.
No, she.
Barbara had curly hair when she was little, real curly.
she?
Uh-huh.
Sure did.
She had dark hair.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you were one to always wipe your children's noses, right?
Yeah.
Your kids would rather have raw noses than runny noses, right?
Yeah, that's right. I can't stand to see a child with runny noses. Even to this day, it gets me. It's just, I don't know why.
They
Uh-huh.
have bring hers over you. They'll twist. She'll be twisting the nose. Get it. Blow on that nose. Blow.
Well, even in your hand right now, you're holding a Kleenex, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I can't stand to be without a Kleenex. And if I don't have a Kleenex, I'll get a napkin. Ugh.
Sort of your security blanket, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what other stories would you like to tell?
Well, I can't think of any. I was just going through this.
You want to take a break and look at that some more? Okay.
When I was 14 or 15, I used to drive the hay into the barn. I used to hook the team of horses up to the DoubleTree and take them down the lane until the hay got up in the barn. The hay ran on a pulley, and it got up into the barn, and then they'd say, "Whoa!" So I'd stop the horses and turn them around and come down and come back and do 4 or 5 loads that way. And Dad said I was better at driving those horses and taking care of the horses than my brothers were. And I felt real good about it, but I'm sure he just said it so I'd keep doing it.
My mom told me that about clearing too. She said I was her best clearer, so I always did a good job clearing, and I realized she just wanted to keep me doing it, right?
Clearing.
Clearing the dishes up in the kitchen.
Yeah. Little praise helps a lot.
That's right. That's right. Did you get a lot of praise from your parents growing up?
Yeah, if we did things right, they'd praise us.
Mm-hmm. How did they punish you?
Well, we went out of one time. The only time I ever remember getting a switching was it was snowing outside, and Mama was baking bread, and she needed some wood in a hurry. And the 4 of us, Helge, Sig, Fritz, and I, went out to get the wood in the wood shed. And the snow was so enticing, we started throwing snowballs at each other. And so we didn't come in, and Mama needed that stove for her wood, for her bread. And pretty soon she came out and she said, "Kids, get that wood in here." So we ran in the house with the wood. And Dad says, "Now," he says, "you're going to get a spanking. All 4 of you are going to get a spanking because you didn't mind your mother right away." And so Helge was first to get a spanking, and then Sigrid, and then Fritz, and then me. And I was the last. I didn't get very much of a spanking, but just hearing them cry and holler, well, that was punishment enough for me. They wouldn't have had to give me a spanking. And then that night, Mama took us all. She wore long underwear, long johns, and she took us in the bedroom one by one, and we had a medication they called oleoid. Dad sold it, and she'd take our pants down and rub the little welts on our bottoms, with that oleoid, and that hurt again. So that's the only time I ever remembered. And Alfred never did get a spanking.
Wow.
Yeah, he was. He had done something, and Mama says, "Now I'm going to spank you today, Alfred." And he ran under the bed and crawled under the bed, and she couldn't get him out, so he never did get a spanking.
It's got to be fast.
They didn't spank us very much or use harsh language or anything. They just mostly talked to us, and Dad just had to. Dad would say, "Go get my slippers, Cemoria," and I didn't go right away. He'd just look at me, and boy, I was up running and got his slippers for him. So they knew how to punish us without spankings.
Mm-hmm.
They once in a while pull our hair in the back, and that hurt.
Huh.
That's where you learn to pull the girls' hair.
Did you pull the girl's hair?
No, I don't remember pulling a girl's hair.
Well, look at Grandpa. You pulled all his hair off,
Yeah,
Grandma.
that's right. If I could pull the rest of it out too, it wouldn't hurt.
Tell you what she did. We had this little hall down there in church, small church, and she'd set the girls in front of her in a row on the chairs in front of the row, and we'd sit right behind them. And if they weren't quiet and listened to the speakers and got restless, she'd just reach over and give the hair just a little jerk, and they'd stop. They'd quiet down right quick. So this stake president was out talking, and he didn't know that she was doing that. They was afraid because they'd get the hair snatched, so they sat there like adults and watched. And the stake president says, "I want to compliment the parents for those little girls. They're perfect ladies. They just sit here and listen like a doe."
See how I could fool even the state president, M.L. Bean.
So you had perfect little angels,
Yeah.
as long as they had long hair.
Yeah, I used to make long ringlets. I tied them up in rags, the night before. They always look so cute in those long ringlets. And
Mm-hmm. Anything
They
else?
was afraid to cry because they got their hair. She just took a little lock and just jerked it like that.
oh, I did not do that.
Oh, you just jerked them on.
I did not.
This
You
is her history, Grandpa. Grandpa, she can tell it exactly how she remembers it to be,
Yeah.
right?
I'm not gonna let her get away.
I was never mean to my kids. You're the one that was mean to them once in a while. You whack them around with a stick, but I didn't do
And
that.
they're all the better for both of you, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're nice in general because of me, and they're tyrants because of Grandpa.
Well, they're not. They behave themselves.
Well, I don't know. I know one time I was sick. One Sunday, I insisted on. I'd been sick for about 3 or 4 weeks, and they didn't seem to know what was wrong with me. I had stayed home from school, and I insisted on going to Sunday school that day. I liked going places and school and Sunday school and all that. And so they let me go, and while they were up singing a song, I fainted. And they didn't know why I fainted, but anyway, they carried me on the bed. This was at Larson's house in Mountain View. I still remember how Dad picked me up and carried me on the bed, put me on the bed, and then afterwards they had the elders administer to me. And 2 or 3 days I was back in school. They didn't know what was wrong with me, but I'd been sick for so long, I guess. And whether I had a virus or something, I don't know. In those days, they didn't use the doctor every time you had a sniffles. You doctored it yourself.
She
They-
had
and
that,
they
had
always-
that medicine.
They had us eat real good, good food. They didn't give us junky food or anything.
Right. Now, you said your dad sold some medicine. What else did your dad do on the side?
Well, he sold both curacol, that was for your stomach, and this other oleoid for the... In fact, that oleoid was real good. It's just a yellow liquid, you'd rub on your skin. If you had a sore or anything, it'd heal up right away. And he was road boss.
What does a road boss do?
Well, he'd take care of the roads, make sure when they get ruts in them or anything, or if they needed new gravel or something, he'd get someone to haul the gravel in, or he'd do it himself and fill the ruts and stuff so that the roads would be smooth. Because by the time I was growing up, they had a lot of cars. See, we got the first car in 1918, and then my Uncle John got a car, and Mr. Peterson got a car, and in fact, we had, when we first got that old Dodge touring car, I think we had 11 or 12 people going to Bellingham at conference time every Sunday when they had conference. Not every Sunday, but just when they had conference.
Mm-hmm.
We'd take Ida and Emil and Enos and then our family. And that was a lot of people in one car. Dad made a bench and put it right between the front seat and the back seat, and us little kids sat on that bench, and then the rest of them took the seats.
Did your brothers learn to drive in this car too?
Oh yeah, yes. In fact, I started learning to drive. One time, my brothers all drove the car, and Rang tried to drive the car, but she didn't have any luck. She did the same as I was. And one day we went to the 40 and had done some work over there. Dad's 40. It was about 2 miles from home. And Dad drove the Dodge over, and I said, gee, I'd sure like to drive. He says, okay, you can drive it home, Cemoria. I was about 10 or 12, I guess, I don't know. And Victor and Alfred were in the back seat, and Dad was sitting up front with me, and I was driving along. It was fine on the straight roads, but when I turned the corner to go up the other road, I went and drove right into the ditch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't know enough to turn the wheel back, see,
Uh-huh.
because I was too young, and Victor and Alfred, I thought they were going to die laughing. They just laughed and laughed and laughed. And Dad says, well, we'll go up and get the horses and pull the car out. So they went up home and got the horses. They only about not even a quarter of a mile. They had to walk home and get the horses and pull the car out of the ditch. So he was never very strict with us. He just kind of laughed along with us, you know. He didn't bawl us out or anything. He just real tender guy.
Uh-huh. So did you drive after that anymore?
No, I didn't touch it after that. I thought I'll let the rest of them drive it in the ditch. I'll never forget how Victor and Alfred sat there and giggled and giggled.
That's funny. Sounds like you had a lot of fun growing up.
Yeah, we did. We had a real good family life.
Were you closer to your brothers around you, your age, or were you closer to your sisters?
No, I was real close to Sig, and then Fritz, and Victor and Alfred. I was real close to the last four. Mm-hmm. But Rang, she was quite stern, you know. Until I came to Seattle, I didn't know her too well. Mm-hmm. But she was married. She had Audrey when she came to Seattle, or she had Audrey here in Seattle. And we got to be real good, close friends.
Mm-hmm. So growing up, you...
Yeah, I played more with the younger ones my own age.
Right.
I remember I'd sit in Sig's lap. I just really loved her. She was such a good sister. She used to cut my hair and kind of fix me up, and I'd sit in her lap, and I said, well, I hope I die before you do, because I can't get along without you, I told her, you know.
Well, what other stories would you like to tell?
We had a real good babysitter when the children were growing up. A little Japanese girl. Her name was Hannah McCamey. Her real name was Hanako, but everybody called her Hannah. And about 65 or 66. Well, the kids had grown up, and I think your mother was married even when she passed away. She had cancer. She was in a rest home there, and your mother and I went and saw her, took her a flower, and about 3 or 4 weeks later we heard she'd passed away, so we went to her funeral at the Buddhist church in Auburn, mm-hmm. between Kent and Auburn, and it said here, she must have been dearly loved by all who knew her, because the church was full to overflowing. As each one passed her casket, they dropped incense into an incense burner. We did not partake of the ceremony because we didn't understand what the ritual meant. Mm-hmm. But she was just a real friendly girl. We, the McCameys were our friends for years and years and years, and then they were sent to the concentration camp, and they still, when they moved back, they were still our friends.
Uh-huh. How did you feel during World War II when all your Japanese friends were sent to the
Well, it's kind of sad because their homes were disrupted and their yards were, their fields were disrupted. Now they rented, McCameys rented their field to some Filipino people, but they didn't near take care of it like the McCammys did. The McCammys were so precise and everything, and had such nice vegetables and things.
What did the McCammys do with their possessions? I know a lot of them tried to sell them and they couldn't, or...
Yeah, I don't know if they sold theirs or what. They probably left them in the house for the people that moved in. And if the people didn't take better care of their possessions than they did the farm, why, I don't imagine they had any. Anyway, when they came back, we took them a lot of our canned goods because we figured they wouldn't have much.
Mm-hmm.
And then next time when they had a crop, well, they brought us over a big box of lettuce, and things like that. They were real generous people.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Rocky, he came and played ball with the girls all the time, and he liked Lorraine real well. And one morning he came early and he asked Dad if he believed in mixed marriages, and Dad said no, he didn't. So he never came back after that.
Huh.
But he liked Lorraine real well.
That's neat. What was World War II like for you?
Well, it was, Al kept working real steady during World War II. He worked in Bremerton.
Okay, you were telling us about the war?
During the war, Grandpa worked over the Navy Yard at night a lot.
Uh-huh.
And he had to work Sundays also. And yeah, I used to be afraid to sleep at night, even with the kids here. I had 5 kids, but I was still afraid, or 4 kids. Carol wasn't born yet, I guess. And we used to put chairs under the doorknobs so no one could come in. And we'd go get books at the library in Seattle, and I read most all night because I was afraid to go to sleep, seeing as he wasn't here. And
how about looking under the beds?
well, the kids had to look under the beds every night, make sure no one was under the beds. I was just about as paranoid as Donna Watson was. When she stayed here for about a month or so, she took the flashlight and went upstairs to look at that man that was chasing her wasn't upstairs, up in the attic. So I was almost as paranoid as she was. But anyway, one night though, the girls and I were dancing in here. It was a Sunday night, and he was home that night. Daddy was. And I felt someone. We had the door. The back door was our front door then. It had a glass in it, And I felt someone looking in at us in the wind in the door. And I said, "There's someone at the door. Someone looking in at the door." And about that time, he had walked down the stairs, but he had glasses on, and they glared, And I could see we didn't have curtains on that window, and it just scared the life out of
Wow,
me.
yeah. So,
And anyway, I guess he went to, Carol had said there was a tramp walking around here. She told me during the day, but I hadn't paid much attention to her. And he walked over to Mrs. Green, and Mrs. Green took him in and fed him, and then he went on his way. I guess he just wanted to see what we were doing, and it sure scared me when I saw him gazing at through the window at me.
so did you put curtains up at the window?
Yeah, we did.
Well, yeah. Now, tell us about, during the war, about the food ration coupons.
Well, they rationed sugar and meat and coffee and I don't know what else they rationed. The only thing that bothered us was the sugar, because I used to bake a lot, and the children missed that baking. And so Clifta, they liked a lot of meat, and they didn't have enough ration stamps for the meat, so I traded sugar stamps for my meat stamps, and that way we made out all right.
Okay. How about your coffee stamps? Did you do that?
No, we didn't get coffee.
Oh.
We didn't drink coffee, so
So they didn't give you coffee stamps?
we didn't ask for them. Just what we wanted, what we ate, and things they give us stamps for.
That's neat. Well, now, did Grandpa work 7 days a week, or?
Yeah, he worked 7 days a week for a long, long time.
So how'd you get to church?
Well, after he joined the church, he wrote and told, or he told Roy Marlowe, our state branch president, that he'd like to have Sundays off. So he wrote a note.
I was a counselor, dear.
Yeah, you were, well, and whatever it was, he wrote a note.
He wrote a letter.
Yeah, a letter.
I took it in.
And took it in to his boss, and the boss passed it on to higher ups, and so they gave him Sundays off. Otherwise, we always had to walk to church, the girls and I did, on Sunday morning. That was a long hike.
How far along was it?
About 4 miles to Renton.
Wow, that was a long hike.
And Sonny was just 2 years old, and about halfway down, he'd be so tired. Mom, I can't walk any farther. He says, I'm so tired, so I'd put him on my back and carry him. And when Stan Marlowe heard that we were walking to church, Sunday was such a long day. The kids would wake up at 5:30 when he did, you know, and be up all day, and it was such a long day, you know. We couldn't do anything but just sit in the house and talk and eat. And so it was a pleasure for us to get to go to church. And Stan Marlowe, we told him we'd walk down. He says, well, if we'd help him with the janitor work, why, he'd come and get us in the morning and take us home. So we were real happy to do that.
Now, are those the days that you would go to church and you had a sacrament meeting and then go home and then come back
No,
for
we
Sunday
just
school,
had
or
the
you
one meeting. No, 2 meetings. We had sacrament, and I think we squeezed Relief Society in there too. I think we eliminated Sunday school. I can't remember just exactly. And then after a while, they started having Sunday school in the morning and then sacrament meeting in the afternoon. So it worked out for us real well.
Yeah. Well, what were some of your callings in the church?
Oh, one time I had 5 callings.
Really? At one time?
Yeah,
Wow.
one time. Well, we had the young women's, I was in the young women's department, and I was in Mutual, MIA, teaching a class in MIA, and I was teaching some little kids in Sunday school, and I can't remember. And then one night I was going out to a meeting, and Barbara said, are you going out to a meeting again tonight? And I said, yes, Barbara, I have to go out to another meeting. Well, I wish you'd stay home with us sometime, she told me. So I decided I was going to start staying home more nights and spending with my children, because they needed me more than the people did down there. So I gave up 2 or 3 jobs, and I just had 2 then, I think.
Just had 2. Boy.
Yeah. Well, we had a substitute. There weren't enough people to go around to fill all the callings, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, were you in the Relief Society at all? Or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in work council and Relief Society a lot. And I was president twice down when they Relief Society president twice. I told the bishop when I turned 60, I thought I should be released. And I says, well, I'm 60 years old today. We were having a party down there. Well, you're a young 60, he said, so he didn't release me. But I was Relief Society president. When President Kay was there, was our bishop too. And then when Paul Deal was our bishop. They raked the bottom of the